Yes. Okay, we're live. And I see that people are logging in.
Great.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm here with Jamie Cox from Blizzard's Entertainment. And we're about to start the first webinar after the summer break. Hope you had a great summer. Lots of sun. How was your summer, Jamie?
Good. It went by in a flash.
Yeah.
I believe it's September already.
Exactly. Okay, well, let's get started. Welcome everybody. Welcome to today's Gala webinar. My name is Isabella Massardo and I'm content strategist here at Gala. And today's webinar is presented, as I said, by Jamie Cox from Blizzard's Entertainment. As always, before we start, let me remind you that you can use the QA box for any questions you want to ask, and the chat box to comment or exchange comments with the presenter and the other participants. The webinar will be recorded. I'll share the link in a follow-up email after the event, and the recording will also be published on the Gala website. Okay, Jamie, I'm leaving the floor to you.
Great. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time. Today, I wanted to talk about digital asset management, DAM, in localization. I think it's an interesting topic. I hope you will too. But before I get started, I just wanted to talk about my professional history a little bit. When I first started in the localization industry, I started out as a translator. I had gotten my master's degree in Japanese literature, and I wasn't really sure what to do, so I started doing some Japanese to English translation. And through that, I found a company called Gengo, started working with them as a translator, but then I started as an intern at their office in San Mateo, California. I was the second PM in the company, which meant there was a lot to organize, a lot to set up in terms of processes and that type of thing. Eventually, I became the channel partner project manager. So any of our clients who had an API integration, I was working with them, making sure that they had the correct style guides, their glossaries were in place, they had the right translators doing the right projects, those types of things. Eventually, I became the project management lead. So I led, I think it was 6 different project managers all across the world, making sure that we had a really nice, follow the sun model in order to best serve our projects and clients and translators as well. After that, I shifted to WeLocalize. I became a senior project manager on some of the large West Coast accounts out of their Portland office, which is also where I'm based now. Definitely really fast-paced environments. It's where I first started working on a lot of media localization, really fast turnarounds. Everything has to stay really relevant. So that was a big focus. Then I became the quality program manager. So same accounts, but I was working on the quality side, making sure that our SLAs were respected with the client and that our quality scores were meeting expectations and exceeding expectations, and also making sure that our teams were in place and fully staffed as well. I then shifted to United Language Group, where I was the e-learning senior project manager. Right around halfway through my tenure at ULG was when COVID really hit, most of the world. And so a lot of companies were shifting to more e-learning. And so that was a big, push internally. And so I helped a lot of our clients with those types of projects. Coming to now, I am here at Blizzard Entertainment. I work in the global content team, which basically means we handle the localization for anything that's not in the games. So short stories, comic books, blog posts, marketing videos, all of those types of things that don't exist in the game, we handle. So any advertisements that you see typically will come through our localization pipeline. And then me specifically, I help out a lot with Overwatch League, as well as BlizzCon, which I'll be talking a bit more about later. So in this webinar, I wanted to go over some main points that I think the DAM is really great at with localization. And then I wanted to touch on a personal example at Blizzard where we use the DAM, I think, very successfully. First, I wanted to start out with a poll. So hopefully one will pop up, but I wanted to know, how does your company manage files? So versioning files, transferring files, that type of thing. There are a lot of different options here. You probably use a combination, but please just select the one that you use the most, or maybe that you think is most common within your company.
Okay, I see people are voting.
Great.
Just a
I
moment.
also realized I didn't put Google Drive on here, but
oh, okay.
you know,
Let's
if you use that, think about that. Yeah.
Yeah, if you use Google Drive, then let's put it in the first under the first option. Okay. Okay, we're almost there. Okay. 10 more seconds.
Should have some background music.
Okay, I'm gonna close the poll and I'm gonna share the results. So here they are. Can you see them, Jamie?
Yeah. Yes, thank you. So it looks like about 55%, so more than half, chose SharePoint, Dropbox, Box. A lot of people still use FTPs, makes sense. Internal drivers, it's definitely a big one. Email and DAM, great. Glad to see DAM users. Yeah, I think there's no wrong way to transfer files. I think as long as it's doing what you need it to do, then that's great. Ultimately, anything works. I want to just look at the DAM and sort of talk about it a little bit more. And I'm also glad that not all of you chose DAM, because then this wouldn't be very interesting. So yeah. So what is a digital asset management system? Let's start there. I took this explanation from this website on the bottom right, but digital asset management, or DAM, is a system that stores, shares, and organizes digital assets in a central location. It amplifies the benefits of creative files, such as images, videos, and other media. Ultimately, DAM is a company's content sharing and storage solution. So basically, we'll get into more of what those advantages of DAM are, but that's a good explanation of, like, it's sort of a repository where all of your assets can sit within a company, accessible by whoever within the company or outside needs to access. DAMs are oftentimes used in conjunction with other tools. So maybe a CRM like Salesforce, or some sort of product information management system, a PIM. And optimally, you would use a DAM across several teams. One of the biggest advantages of DAM is its collaboration functions, which I'll talk about a bit later. But that's a really great way to use DAM. So why use a DAM? Well, personally, I think a DAM holds several advantages over other asset management systems for especially creative work. There's really great metadata storing and searchability. There's automation, which I sort of put both QA and workflows into. And then there's also versioning and collaboration. So those are the three main points I want to touch on. So let's first talk about metadata. There's a lot of different definitions of metadata. Literally, it's data about data, right? But the way I describe it is it's attributes or information about an asset that defines characteristics of that asset. So if you think about a t-shirt, right? So I've got this t-shirt. There's the metadata could be where it was created, like the factory where it was created, the logo that's on it, which you could store in a DAM also, the fabric, those types of things would be metadata about this shirt. So um, all tools will capture some metadata, uh, and sometimes you don't need to capture a ton of metadata, but especially when you're working with creative files or lots of different files, it's nice to have a lot of metadata connected to an asset, because it's better searchability and it's a lot easier to find assets in a big sea of assets, right? So here's a SharePoint example of the type of data that is captured just automatically by SharePoint. So things like the name of the file, um, who it was last modified by and when, and then also the file size. Those are some big ones. There's a lot more in a DAM that you can do though. So in DAM, metadata is vital, and it's also highly customizable. You can really set metadata points as whatever you might need them to be. And within DAM, you can search on virtually any metadata point that you attach to an asset. So like other systems, a DAM will ingest metadata automatically from an asset and will also include several fields that can be filled out by the person uploading the asset. So this can be manually filled out, or it can be as a CSV import when you are importing the image itself. Let's look at an example. So this is Anduin Rin, one of Blizzard's characters from World of Warcraft. This is an image of him. Let's say we want to ingest this into our DAM. So there are going to be several different metadata points that are ingested automatically. Things like the file name, so the .jpeg or whatever it might be. The file type, what type of file is it? Is this a Adobe Illustrator? Is this a PSD? Is this just a JPEG? Whatever it might be. The file size, so how many kilobytes is it? The height and the width as well, those dimensions. Who uploaded the file? So who was the original person that brought this file into DAM? And the date of the upload as well. So those are just a few of the metadata points that upon ingesting, DAM will automatically create those metadata points. But if we really want to be able to search for this image across hundreds of other images, we want to narrow down this image and specify it by creating more metadata points. So some examples of metadata that can be added manually is the file title. It's different from the file name. So for example, file name is Anduin v3.jpg, right? But you want the file title to say Anduin in armor or something like that, right? That would be the file title. We can also name the character in the image or characters, right? So in this case, we would just say Anduin. The model type, is this concept art? Is this in-game graphics? Is this from our cinematics that the Blizzard team creates? What type of Anduin is this? Also the franchise, is this Anduin in World of Warcraft, or is this Anduin in Hearthstone? You want to be able to specify that. What expansion are we in? Where in the story timeline are we? Is this Battle for Azeroth Anduin, or is this Shadowlands Anduin? We want to be able to specify, because that might matter at the time that you are pulling this asset out. Also the in-game location. Where is Anduin in this picture? Is he in Stormwind? Is he in Orgrimmar? Probably not. So where is he? And also goes along with that, but what time of day is this, right? So if you were looking for a picture of Anduin at night, well, then you can check this one off the list. But if you're looking for daytime or maybe even dusk or that type of thing, these are all metadata points that you can have in a DAM depending on what you're searching for. Let's do another example. So say I'm in the DAM and I want to search for Mercy, one of our characters in Overwatch, beloved character. So I just type in Mercy, and wow, I get a lot of search results. This is a little overwhelming, right? I can see different skins, different costumes that Mercy is wearing. I can see Mercy in game. I can see concept art. I can see Mercy in groups, right? So I really need to narrow this down. And the way I do is through different metadata search options, right? Search terms. So I want Mercy, but I just want her solo. I want the number of characters in the image to be 1. So once I've done that, okay, great. I'm narrowing down my search. In DAM, this would probably be still hundreds of images, right? So we want to make sure that we're narrowing it down even more. You can see a couple of different types of Mercy here, but the one I'm looking for is Mercy, solo, and I want concept art as well. I don't want the in-game images, I want concept art. Great, really getting down there, right? So I can see these two both would work. They're both still very different, right? So my final search will be Mercy, solo, concept art with a transparent background. And ta-da, I found the exact picture I'm looking for. It was only a few quick searches. I didn't have to go back through, months of email to find it. So I think metadata is really vital to DAM and to successful creative operations within DAM as well. So that's metadata. The next point I want to talk about is automation and QA. So in DAM, automation and QA really go hand in hand. Automation can generally, but in DAM specifically, automation can aid in QA and make for a lot faster review. So say, for example, you are tasked with QAing a file and you have to look at the technical specifications, but also the linguistic specifications as well. You need to make sure that things are being pronounced correctly and things sound right and it's not too fast or too slow. If you need to look at both, it can take a lot more time. So with DAM, you can really hone in on the linguistic stuff because the automation has taken care of those technical specification checks. Let's look at an example of video files. So these are a bunch of different data points, metadata that has been entered when we have uploaded an asset into DAM. There's a lot, you don't have to look at everything, but the one we really want to focus on is the frame rate here. So why is frame rate important? Frame rate can cause issues for localization, especially, and specifically of SCC subtitle files. Those are the closed caption files. And SCC are different from SRT, for example, because SCCs are timed to the frame and not to the millisecond. So this matters because if you have a 60 FPS video and you're using that to time your SCC closed captions, but then when the video airs online, the video is airing at 30 FPS, you're going to get a lot of drift in the captions. What's being said at the time is not necessarily what's going to be showing up in the captions. It's bad for English for accessibility. It's also bad for localization because you're going to be off on what's being said and it won't be a pleasant user experience, right? So what a DAM can do is automatically check for the correct specifications of an asset upon that asset's ingestion into the DAM. You can tell an asset when I upload into this specific folder, which is for this specific broadcast, I need the videos to always be 60 FPS. They can't be anything lower. And so if someone uploads a 30 FPS video, well, then the DAM can automatically send an email to that user and say, hey, you need to upload the correct version, right? So why is this good for QA? Well, it reduces the QA time of functional issues and instead lets QA focus on language specific testing. So even if these users are two different people, even if these QA are managed by two different people, we all know that anything within the localization workflow that you can streamline and automate and make simpler while not compromising the quality of the end product is really helpful for everybody, right? So in that way, I think the automation and QA are super helpful in the DAM and a real asset, especially compared to other file management systems. The last one I want to touch on before the personal example is versioning and collaboration. So I consider versioning to be the seamless transition from one version of an asset to an updated version of that asset. assets can be updated for many different reasons. Maybe there has to be a ratings card on the beginning of a video, right? And so you have to add a 3-second ESRB rating at the beginning, or maybe some B-roll has to be changed in the middle. So really anything can affect what that versioning is, right? So what's really great about DAM is that it allows for versioning to overwrite previous versions of an asset, but you can still maintain that previous version's information. So you can still maintain that previous version's metadata, like who originally uploaded it and when the original version was uploaded. And that's pretty different from uploading on, say, SharePoint or even Google Drive, where you can't necessarily connect two files. And if you delete something, it just kind of goes away forever. Whereas in DAM, typically you can set it so when you upload a new version, it will overwrite that version, but sort of keep the versions, keep the assets history, if you will. So, sorry. In that way, I think versioning and collaboration is really, really helpful in DAM. So for collaboration specifically, within DAM, creative collaboration can occur directly on an asset and can even be annotated at specific timestamps on that asset, especially for audio and video files. I think for static assets as well. I just haven't worked with those as much. But here's a good example. This is from Orange Logic. They have a really good DAM. But you can see here on the video that someone is making comments on how a cut should be, or the audio levels changing, or just a nice thing to say, right? All of these things can be annotated directly onto the video, which means that you don't have to go somewhere else and look at feedback and try to connect it to the asset, right? You can really streamline the creative review process overall. So I think that's another really big advantage of DAM, especially when you're working with a lot of creative files. Okay, those are my 3 big points of DAM. I want to now transition into a personal example here at Blizzard. So I want to talk about BlizzConline. This happened in February of 2021. Here's the key art for it. I'm biased, but I think it's very cool. And I just want to talk about how in localization, we used DAM to really streamline our efforts for the subtitle localization of BlizzCon. Okay, so what is BlizzCon? Don't worry, I'll explain. So BlizzCon is this big event that typically happens once a year, where a bunch of fans of Blizzard, up to 40,000 different players, converge on the Anaheim Convention Center. The Blizzard staff, all the employees work during the convention, and it's really just kind of a celebration of all things Blizzard, especially the players. It's where the players get to show off cool cosplay, and it's where they get to meet their friends that they play online with, and it's also where Blizzard uses to announce a lot of new games that are coming up, or a lot of new, a new expansion for World of Warcraft, or something like that. So it's really big. From a localization standpoint, I think in 2019 we did live simultaneous interpretation for 7 different languages. So this allowed people watching online at home, and also in the audience, to experience what was being announced in their own language. So from 2020, you can't have 40,000 people in a space right now, let alone 40 people. So we really needed to change our strategy. So in 2020, BlizzCon was canceled, but instead in early 2021, the event shifted to an all digital event. So instead it was live streamed across several different channels on YouTube, totally free. There was about 30 hours of video content, and it all needed localization across up to 12 different languages. So depending on the asset, the number of languages that we localized into changed, sort of depending on the audience and what those creators of that asset wanted. But we had up to 12 languages. How that worked was we had the live broadcast of the opening ceremony, which is really the big portion where all the game teams talk about what's next for them and what they're looking forward to in this coming year. So that we had live broadcasts of in several different languages, with either SCC captions toggleable, or they were burned into the asset. And for everything else, we had subtitle support for what we call VODs, the video on demand, which means videos that were uploaded to YouTube after the initial live stream. So something was broadcast on live stream, and the second it ended, it was available as a video. And that was where a lot of the the localized subtitles lived. So how did we in localization utilize DAM? Well, from an entire BlizzCon standpoint, moving all the parts of asset creation into Blizzard's DAM ensured a streamlined process from asset inception to live airing. So the team who sort of shepherded everyone into DAM did a really great job of making sure we were all set and comfortable in DAM. Our translation vendor, who was responsible for creating all of the assets, the localized assets, as well as the English closed captions for accessibility, was onboarded onto the DAM. All asset handling was done on the system securely. We had good security protocols. Whenever a video was downloaded by our translation vendor in order to create the subtitles, it was automatically downloaded with a watermark, for example. So, we trust everybody, but if there's a leak, we can sort of track it back if something.
Oh, Jamie, I think we lost your sound. Let's see whether we can catch up with him. Can you all hear Jamie, or am I the only one? Can't hear him. All right. You're on mute. Okay.
Did I go away?
You were on mute, yes.
Oh no, okay.
That's okay.
I heard a beep in my headphones and I was like, that's probably not a good thing. Okay.
Okay.
Let me go back. Thanks everybody. I see the chat numbers going up, so much appreciated. So the translation, let me start with the last bullet point. I think that was where I was. So the outcome was pretty successful. All the files were delivered on time, and millions of Blizzard fans across the world got to enjoy BlizzConline from their own homes and in their own languages, especially, which for us in localization is a big win. So let's talk about the workflow. These first two steps that happen in DAM weren't really, we in localization didn't have a ton of involvement, but they still happened in DAM. So the actual initial upload of the asset, followed by the creative collaboration and the tweaks as well. And then we had video time lock. So video time lock is really where localization should start. That means that from the beginning to the end, the video won't change anymore. So for example, maybe the audio levels will go up or down, or maybe some of the B-roll that's airing in the background of a video will change after time lock, but the start, the stop, and what is being spoken in between will not change. And that's where you want to start with subtitle localization. So the initial step was the ENUS SCC was created, that closed caption subtitle. And that had to happen initially because there are a couple extra steps you have to do when you have an SCC file. So after that happened, the localized SRTs were created based off of that file, the English file. And then at the same time, a different team was embedding the SCC, that closed caption English file, onto the asset. So an SCC file gets embedded into the video that the closed captions are for, whereas an SRT sort of overlays on top of the asset. After that, both assets were uploaded to YouTube, or all assets were uploaded to YouTube, whether through a live stream or through that video on demand that we were talking about earlier. So that was how we at Blizzard, and especially localization, utilized DAM. We had a lot of really great learnings from that as well. And we're able to streamline that process even more for future projects. So I want to end with 2 more slides. And the first one is, when is a DAM right for you? So hopefully you're already just really excited to get a DAM going. And I think in these instances especially, DAM is really helpful. So for localization, DAM is really helpful when working on highly creative assets that require close collaboration for maximum efficiency. So you want to really take advantage of the collaborative features that DAM has. DAM is also useful for reducing QA time on technical specifications, which allows more time typically for the linguistic QA on the process. And DAM is hugely helpful in searchability of previous assets through the use of detailed metadata. So, I have definitely spent hours looking for a specific email that had a file attached to it. And in DAM, it's a lot easier to search for those types of things. So conversely, when is a DAM not right for you? I think a big one here, and maybe this is important for a lot of the people in the audience, is for an LSP, language service provider, a DAM may not be useful due to ownership of client data. So I know in my past experience, you work on assets for a client, but you don't necessarily own those assets, right? Well, you don't own those assets. Similar to a translation memory, that belongs to the client, right? So it might not make sense for you to pay the overhead costs of a DAM if you're housing assets that aren't yours. But if you can migrate your work into the client's DAM, that's probably really helpful. Also, DAM works best on creative projects, especially using a lot of audio and video. So other file types, other industries may not take proper advantage of DAM and may not actually need DAM, right? So if you're working on a lot of legal documents or maybe like medical documents or that type of thing, it might not be as effective or as important. And then if that's the case, then you're probably better off just using a simpler system that does not have the overhead costs of DAM. Okay, that was it. I want to say thank you so much for listening and being here. And I'm happy to answer questions. Sorry again about the audio going out.
Okay, no problem, it can happen. Let's see, there was a question from Aida, but yeah, I think you probably already answered it. I'm going to repeat it just, for completeness.
Sure.
What type of companies you would recommend to use them? Because of course it's not a one size fits all. So
absolutely, yeah, it's definitely a lot more creative companies or companies that are working on creative content, especially across lots of different teams. That's the one that will really take advantage of DAM's usefulness.
And so if what kind of advice would you give to an organization that is interested in migrating to a DAM? How should they go about implementing a DAM? What should they look out for? What are the pain points? What the pitfalls? Tell us.
Definitely, yeah. So I think the hardest part about getting into a DAM is just getting everyone on board, right? Even when change is for the better, it can be hard to motivate people, especially if that can potentially disrupt a workflow for a second. So you really want to make sure that within every team that will be using the DAM, you have what's called a super user, right? Basically someone who knows the DAM, knows it really well, and can also advocate within their team for the use of DAM. That's really important. And a pain point that I see is that metadata is kind of a double-edged sword, because it's really helpful, but until you get a nice process, um, you're bound to have people who are uploading assets and maybe use the wrong metadata tags, or don't use any metadata tags. And so it's really
Mhm.
important that you have an auditing process as well within that process, to quarterly check the metadata of assets and make sure that the users who are using DAM are really you know learned in
Mhm.
that metadata ingestion process.
Okay, thank you. That was really some good points there. Let's see, anyone else with questions for Jamie? Lots of positive messages.
Thank you so
Uh,
much. Thanks, everybody.
Everybody liked the presentation. Okay, here are some questions for you. You can see them in the QA chat. I'll read them out for you, read them out loud for you. Do you see the value of a DAM for training new team members?
Yeah, I think DAM for training new team members, there's actually a couple different ways. So maybe
Mhm,
you're using a DAM for the actual training of a new team member. So
mhm,
onboarding materials into the team, or that type of thing can work. But also, if you have a DAM in place and everyone's using it, when you
mhm,
onboard a new team member into that DAM, it's pretty seamless, right? Because
mm,
um, you already have everyone who's an expert working on that process, and they're able to really easily get someone involved. And I would liken a lot of DAMs to cat tools. So there's usually a lot of
mhm.
similarities between cat tools. Like, if you use one, you kind of understand how the other ones work, even if
Sure.
there's little quirks. So I would say it's similar to that. So once everyone gets used to it, it's pretty easy to sort of find your way, even if there's not a ton
Mhm.
of training materials there.
Excellent. And if you consider all the dams out there, David is asking, of course, what are the pros and cons? And so, and most importantly, how do you evaluate the different options? What should, what would you consider? What?
Yeah, great question. There's a lot of dams. I don't even know how many there are, but the pros and cons are sort of just like, what level of customization do you
Mhm,
want? So, for example, if you have really really intense workflows that are very specific, you might not be able to use like an out of the box solution.
mhm,
Whereas if you and what comes with that is a really specified workflow, but it might be more expensive, right? Because you're
mhm,
asking to change that core product to what you want. Whereas if you go with more of an out of the box option, um, typically you're just paying for startup fees, as well as kind of maintenance fees. So I think that's a big one. Um,
mhm.
and then in terms of evaluating different options, I was lucky in that there was already a dam in place at Blizzard, and so we were able to reap the benefits of some other team's hard work in getting our dam in place. So yeah.
Okay. And again, David, there's another question. Is, suppose you have a library of 20 years of digital assets and you have to put them all in a dam. How would you go about it? Because he comments the amount of work to ingest it, and that metadata is overwhelming, of course.
Yeah, definitely. You know, our approach when we started DAM was starting with what we were going to do moving forward, and then if we needed to migrate things later on, um, doing that later. But typically, when you start working with a DAM vendor, what they will do is ask you about the types of assets that
Mhm,
you are looking to migrate into DAM, and they will really help you along the way, um, either tagging metadata or asking you to give at least big groupings of what types of assets those things are, and then from there you're able
mhm,
to at least do an initial ingestion. What's great about DAM is after the fact you can add more metadata in as well. So if the idea is just getting things in at first, and then afterwards going through and solidifying those assets with more metadata, that can work as well.
Okay, and then one more question from Jackson. How did you determine which features and design choices were needed or wanted by your users when customizing your DAM system?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So in localization, we had a lot of different team members and a lot of different points of view, especially around the world. And so what we did is created a poll about how people were managing assets initially, right? We have a lot of different teams across the world, and so the methods that they were using suited them. And so we wanted to know how much of that information we could really unify into one streamlined workflow. So we really asked the people who were going to be our DAM users to give us some good insight there. So that was the first step.
Okay, and another question from Ian. Do you need separate CMSs and DAMs, or have you seen systems that can cover both?
That's a great question. I have not seen a system that can cover both, but typically a DAM will have a really good API system set up, and oftentimes they'll have already set that up, or they have the ability to set up an integration with whatever other tools you're using, as long as the security functions are matching up. So you can have separate systems that communicate really well with one another on the back end.
Okay, thank you so much, Jamie. Very interesting. I don't see any other questions for now, but of course, if there are, please send them in and we'll collect them and send them to Jamie. And if you take some time to reply, Jamie, that would be great.
Sure, definitely.
So thank you again for a great presentation. And it was your first presentation at Gala, so please come back
I will.
another time.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
I really appreciate it.
Very welcome. And another big thank you to all the participants for joining us. When I close the webinar, you'll see a post-event survey. I would like to ask you to fill it in because your feedback, of course, will help us refine our webinar program. I have two very small announcements. From October 5th to October 7th, we have our Gala Connected conference. In case you're interested, the program is already online. Please go to our website. And the next webinar will be in 2 weeks on September 23rd, and it will be on creating a voice recognition system. So until then, have a good day, have a good evening, depending on where you are. And I look forward to seeing you at another Gala event very soon. Thank you again, Jamie. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.